In the 1940s, a Cornell University professor devised a highly effective note-taking system and advocated its use in his best-selling book, How to Study in College. It has become one of the most recommended or even required note formats in high schools, colleges, and universities. Several companies now sell Cornell formatted notebooks. Numerous people and schools have posted YouTube tutorials about how to take notes. In this video, you'll learn a slightly different format adapted from this work. First, I use note creation rather than note-taking to describe the process. You aren't just jotting down information. Instead, you're designing something original and meaningful to you. Two students creating notes from the same source will not produce identical notes. Instead, the goal is to understand and make sense of the information, drawing on your prior knowledge and experiences by adding your own examples, similes, questions, and so on. Let's get started. In my class, I distribute pre-made 2-column notebook paper. However, you can easily create your own. Simply draw a line that splits the paper into 2 columns. The one on the left should be narrower. One element of note creation that every system emphasizes is the labeling of your notes. At a minimum, you should identify the class, date, and the topic. It's also helpful to identify the source of the information. Are you listening to a lecture, participating in a discussion, reading an article or book, or watching a video, for example? Sometimes you'll identify more than one source. As you watch this video, try to create notes in the 2-column format about how to create notes in the 2-column format. In a nutshell, you put keywords and points of analysis in the left column and the facts, details, and specifics, in other words, the evidence, in the right column. Keywords may be proper nouns, such as the names of people, places, events, documents, and so forth. To create notes on what I just said, the keyword proper nouns goes on the left and the examples go on the right. Vocabulary words and discipline or subject terminology go in the left column. Now imagine you're in a lecture right now. Take notes on what I'm about to say. Their corresponding definitions, explanations, examples, sample usages, and perhaps synonyms and antonyms go in the right. Anything that helps you understand the word and how it is used. Concepts are also types of keywords for the left column. Each subject or topic may have its own processes or classification systems that you need to understand. For example, the water cycle or cell division in a science class might be considered concepts, or the parts of speech in an English class. Cause and effect relationships are also concepts. You put the cause in the left column and the effect or effects in the right. Okay, a little meta discussion here. How are you doing on the pace of the lecture? If you're watching a video, you can pause and rewind it when you need more time. In class, a teacher may pause to answer a question, or may even repeat a word or reword a concept. The more notes you take from a variety of sources, including different teachers with different speaking styles, the more proficient and quicker you'll become. Note creation is like any other skill. Dedicated practice and incremental improvements are key. Try more real-time note creation as I explain the next point. Besides keywords, analysis should be written in the left column. Often, you write a number of facts, details, and specifics in the right column first. Then you draw conclusions about the significance of those facts or about the meanings of the information on the right side. Analysis also involves determining the relationships among events and details. How does global warming, for instance, impact the water cycle? Here are the most vital parts of what I just said. If you didn't have time to jot examples down in the moment, that's okay. You can do so in your night review of your notes. I'll explain this later. Speakers use transitions to indicate a shift of topic. So if this were a live lecture, I would say something like, now that you understand the 2-column format, I'd like to spend a few minutes giving you some note creation tips. That's a clue to start a new topic in the left column. If you only remember 2 things about note creation from this video, remember these 2 points. Number 1, don't write complete sentences in your notes, especially during face-to-face lectures. Focus on the keywords only as you write. Unless your teacher specifically tells you to write complete sentences for an assignment, remember that notes are for you. The second vital takeaway from the video, even if you choose not to create 2-column notes, is this. Don't capture the speaker's words exactly. Paraphrase or translate ideas into your own words. As mobile devices such as laptops, tablets, and phones have grown ubiquitous, more and more research is being conducted about the effectiveness of handwritten versus typed notes. Here's the deal. Because you can capture exact wording more quickly when you type, you actually learn less. The more laborious handwriting method requires you to think actively about what's being said and paraphrase it, shorten it, condense it, prioritize, classify, etc. As a guiding principle, if you want to learn it, create notes by hand. If you only want to reference the material later, such as meeting notes, you can type. Learning takes effort, so you can put the effort in when you're already in a dedicated space with dedicated time and do that learning in the moment, or you can take your digital transcription of your speaker talks and create more effective notes later, on your own time, when you could be doing something else or sleeping. Now I'm going to share 4 specific tips, and if the speaker identifies numbers as I just did, use numbers in your notes. It's particularly helpful to reference numbers in your questions to the speaker. I'll talk about 2 tips and you create the notes. Strategy number 1, abbreviate as much as you can. Use common symbols such as a plus or ampersand for and, or use the number sign. Another way to abbreviate is to shorten common or frequently used words. Information becomes info, or maybe even the circled I icon used on websites. Representative becomes rep. Texting shortcut abbreviations are generally okay in your notes. Your notes are for you. If your teacher doesn't specify whether texting language is acceptable in notes assigned for homework or that will be collected, ask. Use initials for people's organization groups to which you refer frequently in your notes. WS might be the abbreviation for William Shakespeare in an English class, for example. Lastly, create your own symbols and shortcuts. As long as you know what they mean, you can create any kind of symbol that works for you. The second strategy is to use space liberally. Leave a lot more space than you think you should between each note. This way, you can add information, clarification, and questions later, either during the lecture, class discussion, your note review, or your study sessions in preparation for assessments. Note creation is not the time to worry about saving paper. You can write on the back if your pen doesn't leak through, but leave a lot of space. Here I have the bare bones of these first 2 strategies. Notice that there are a few more examples than I actually gave. Hopefully you're starting to add your own examples. Pause the video here to make sure you have all the key information included in your notes. Continue when you're ready. Practice as I present 2 more strategies. Try to draw pictures, graphs, and diagrams whenever possible in the right column. Even stick figures can help illuminate a word or a concept. If the teacher isn't distributing or posting a presentation with its graphics, sketch them. Draw big. Remember, we aren't worried about saving paper, and larger images are easier when you have to label things. This third strategy, to include images in your notes, helps with recall later. Visualizing the information uses a different part of your brain than writing words. Lastly, create questions as you listen, read, or watch. If a reading assignment includes questions, put them in the left column, and the details or evidence that can be used to answer the questions in the right. If the speaker doesn't have time to answer questions right then, record your questions for later, either to ask the speaker or your peers or to research yourself later. Generate your own questions on a night's reading to ask the next day. Ask yourself private questions to engage with the ideas. The bottom box in the traditional Cornell note system is called Summary. I prefer Connections because it suggests more engagement with the ideas. If you're leaving a lot of space, there may not be much you need to summarize on a single page, but you can always draw connections, such as analogies, metaphors, and explanations, that tie this new information to your prior knowledge or experience. It's a space for additional drawing, questioning, and even summarizing if that's helpful. Review your day's notes for 10 minutes that same night. It cuts down your eventual study significantly. In that time, clarify anything illegible, add additional examples, note questions, and create connections. One study suggested that an initial review of your notes several hours after they are created can cut study time by 40% or more. A little time now versus a lot more time later. It's a choice. During this initial review, or days later in preparation for an assessment, use color coding. Just as images help you learn, so do colors. In this example, the red dot denotes key points. I could turn them into questions for review later. What are the 4 creation tips that we discussed in class? The blue here is for vocabulary or terminology, and my use of green identifies the most significant information that seems counterintuitive to me as a note creator. Some teachers provide a color code for other areas of a course. If yours does, you can adapt it to fit your note content. If your teacher doesn't, develop your own and use it consistently across all your notes for all your classes. Use additional callouts such as stars and boxes. You can create your own color-coded symbols as well. Check out the links to additional resources in the video description below. And happy note creation!